This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
There has been alarm calls of the zebra under the cloudy, gloomy skies, and we're trying to see what's making the fuss. This is Safari Live. Ready. Standing by.
Five, four, three, two, one. You are live. You are live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our sunrise safari, which is going to be a bit of a dark, gloomy one because there's lots of clouds all over the place, and it's very, very sort of gloomy out here this morning. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Ferg, and hopefully we're going to have a wonderful morning because already we've had zebras alarm calling, and the zebras look quite panicked, and there's tracks for not only a male lion but what looks like the Nkuhuma Pride as well. So we're going to try and get onto those and see if we can't find the Nkuhumas. Hopefully they're lurking somewhere in this area. And I know Ellie's heading towards the south. She's going to be looking for any signs of leopards. So hopefully it will be a good, promising start to the day, really. Now remember, it is interactive, it is live, so you can get hold of us on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and hopefully we'll have a busy day filled with questions that we will try and answer for all of you. Right, Ferg, enough talking. Let's try and find some lions. Our zebras wandered off into the distance and kind of moved as the vehicle came up. They seemed to be quite nervous this morning, and they were calling just now, not even 5 minutes ago. They were making some alarm calls, and I think there's just the scent of lions in the air that's distressing them slightly. I also know that there was, like I say, a track of a male lion just behind me here going in an easterly direction, and tracks for some of the females just going all over the place. So we've got Aubrey helping us as well. He's going to check Vuyatela access towards the north. We're going to check Gallagher shortcut, and hopefully we're going to go to Gallagher Pan, and there's going to be a whole pride of lions lying there. That's what I'm hoping anyway. Whether or not that turns into reality is anyone's guess, but we've got to have wishful thinking anyway. Now Byron this morning is having a little lion. He's having a little snooze. Yeah, he's not a little lion, no. Ferg's on point again this morning. No, he's not a little lion, but he's having a little snooze, taking the morning off. He's got to get his beauty sleep, as he said about me yesterday, so the same thing for him. He's got to make sure that he keeps those good looks going, that the rest of the world is happy and keeps them satisfied. Right. Hopefully the Mara will also be joining us at some stage today. I know James Henry was back yesterday, which I'm sure many of you were very excited about. So I see the zebra tracks came from this side, so it's worth going to go check this way. Maybe these lions have been pushing these zebras all night from the north, and that's why they've come down in this direction, because I can see lots of zebra tracks here moving southwards. Right, while we do this, Ellie is raring to go and wants to say good morning, so let's go across to her.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another chilly but wonderful morning in the African bush. My name is Ellie, and on camera with me today is Seb, and we are trying to look for maybe the lions a bit further south. Seems like we didn't hear them yesterday, which could be a good indication that they were actually busy moving during the night and they were hunting. Like we said, the cubs, 6 cubs were found, but they didn't have any cubs with any mothers with them. So there's a chance that the mothers were out hunting. And I mean, some people heard the zebras' distress calls around the dam camp. We heard them this morning. So there's a good possibility that lions have been up and about and maybe looking for zebras. I haven't seen any of them around here, but nothing. Chris, you're wondering what the zebra sounds like a horse or a mule or a donkey. I think it's a combination of everything. I think it's a mix between a horse and a donkey. I'm just trying to keep an eye out for tracks. But yeah, so I don't know. It's a beautiful call actually. I think it's very pretty because I don't know. It's very harmonious, very melodious. But I'm sure they're not doing it for a lot of fun. Let's see. Seems like everyone has heard the zebras and everyone's getting quite excited trying to look for them on all the roads. So if the lions are around, there's a very good chance that we will be able to find them. I just wanted to make sure that they didn't go and escape into the magic place. That's Little Gowrie that seems to attract everything. But for now, no tracks around here. So a good thing, because maybe they have gone around somewhere else. So I'm hoping Tristan will get lucky this morning. He was lucky the other day, him and Herbie with that beautiful male lion walking around. So that is always stunning. And I'm very happy to see that nobody's been walking down this road. So yay! Good shots. I did check the hyena den as well, a different one from yesterday, this morning during the pre-show, because there were lots of tracks heading in. But there was no hyena to be found. So I don't know if it's maybe worth trying later on this afternoon once it warms up, because I don't think it's going to be warm up this morning for them to come out if they are still using that one. But we'll see. Hopefully they'll be around. But if not, my plan for the morning is pretty much anything we can see. Rashni, you're asking if I can make the zebra sound. I really am terrible at imitating any animal call, so I can't. I would sound more like a wild dog than anything else. I can do a wild dog if you're interested, but I can't really do a zebra. And it's a very beautiful and unique sound, and sometimes, funny enough, they sound very much like the hornbills when they're making their calls. And often you will find when you become a ranger, you'll confuse the hornbills and be like, oh, there are zebras. Alright, it seems like Tristan's still with the zebras, so let's go over to him and hopefully those zebras will start singing good morning.
Well, the zebras have been calling, so we're going to try and stay with them as long as possible. And I have a funny feeling that these lions maybe snatched one of the young zebras, because in amongst the tracks that I saw, there was a track for a very small zebra, and this zebra is calling and calling and calling. The one on the back left there, the one behind the tree, she's the one that is calling all the time. And I wonder if maybe her young one wasn't taken by the lions last night, and that's why we're hearing so much vocalizing. I've checked this whole area. There's no sign of any lions here for her to be alarm calling at, and zebras are not one. So there we go, that's them calling. And they don't do this unless either they've split in the terms of the herd, or if they've got a lost young one that's around and they're worried about where it could be. So that's why we're hearing the sound. I think that potentially, unfortunately, the Nkuhumas may have grabbed one of these young ones last night. But we'll try and see what we can find and check around. There's tracks for these lions going up and down. See, she's calling with quite a bit of vigor, and it's the same female that keeps calling over and over again. And look, she's listening. So once she's called, she's now listening to see if there's a response back from whoever she's trying to find. But it is a very strange sound, isn't it? There they go, they're going off into the distance now. It seems like our lion tracks have gone more west, and I'm not going to be surprised if they've crossed into Simambili. It sounds like they're heading straight in that direction. So, but let's just see. Maybe they've sort of stopped short, but it sounds like they have gone in that direction. But they're still calling. I just want to go forward a little bit and just check. Sometimes in this long grass, you never know. There could be a lioness hiding somewhere in here. So worth just having a little look. We know that also with the Nkuhumas, that at the moment there is the 4 females walking around and one that's kind of in and out because she's got this cub, and so it could be one of them just lurking here as well. But I honestly think that they probably have crossed already into Simambili or Arethusa. Where are you guys off to? Wherever these zebra are off to, they're doing it with haste. They're not really sitting around for long periods of time. Since we found them this morning, they've been moving quite a bit, so I just want to try and see if I can't get ahead of them a little bit. See, the stallion is coming straight towards us now as well. And he also looks slightly distressed. He's kind of looking around, and he'll take it as a personal sort of insult if they've lost one of the herd, because he is very, very protective of his unit. He likes to make sure that everybody is safe. And look, you can see he's alert, he's looking, listening all the time. I wonder what happened last night. Sometimes you wish you could be a sort of fly on the wall and have watched what unfolded. So we Siberia Zumi, you asking if a zebra was distress calling like it is now, wouldn't that attract more predators into the area? Well, it could do. So you could have a situation where hyenas would rock up and try and see what's going on. They would come in here and sniff around and see, okay, hang on, maybe one of these zebras is dead and we can steal that. You'll sometimes find leopard will just come and check what's going on, and lions most certainly would too. The thing about this area is that there's only really one pride of lions, and if the males are nowhere close by, then we're going to have a situation where they're not going to really hear it and they're not going to come in. The Nkuhuma Pride will have been the ones that have caused this distress, and so there's no pride of lions anywhere in the nearest vicinity other than the Nkuhumas that could be here. So they would be the only ones that would be attracted, but they were the ones that caused the sort of distress in the first place. So yes, it's possible. But there's definitely something that's disturbing these zebras this morning. Let's try and see. So it sounds like our lines haven't crossed yet, which is good. So Daniel, who's 13 years old. Hello Daniel, I hope you have had a very good day. You want to know if this is the McCurdy herdie? Well Daniel, I'm not sure, to be honest, because the thing is we haven't seen the McCurdy herdie for quite a while, and this herd is definitely smaller than what the McCurdy herdie was when it was here for such a long period of time. So it could be a little piece of the McCurdy herdie, but I don't know. The other day we had 4 different herds of zebra on Djuma, and so it's difficult to know who is who. The problem with zebra as well is that while they do have individual coat patterns, we don't recognize them nearly as well as what we would with some other animals. So things like the lions and the leopards that have spot patterns, because the zebras are a little bit more common, we have a situation where we don't actually get to know them as well as what we do the leopards, and so it's possible that it could be members of the McCurdy herdie. I just don't know. Oh, what's this in the road? Oh, kudu. I thought there was something else in the road, and that's why all the zebras have stopped. So they're just asking me where I am at the moment with these tracks. But here are some kudus as well, so it seems like all the animals are here together. Sure, these zebras are very alert. Yeah, they're starting just to come through now. There we go, you can see them just moving through the thickets. Just trying to see if they're going to call again, because it's such an amazing sound. It's not one we hear very often, so to hear them calling is very cool. And like Ellie said, it's not an easy sound to make. Ferg, you were pretty good at it just now, so Ferg seems to be able to be one. Were you a zebra? Ah, okay, very nice, Ferg. So this is your brethren that are walking around at this stage. seem they've gone back to feeding now. So whatever is distressing them, it's something that they realize they can't solve right now, and that they're going to go back to feeding while it's still cool. This is the time that most of our prey animals will be feeding, and so I suppose back to feeding it is. But the one that's distressed is the one right in the front, and she's still the one that's kind of looking over her shoulder. So let's just go and see. I wonder if it's not worth just backtracking these zebra and just seeing if there's not some sort of signs of a struggle somewhere. Because a zebra won't go lightly when it comes to lions. They'll definitely try their best to defend themselves as much as possible. So I'm just going to go forward here. So this is the one that is the most distressed, is this female that's just walking in front. And it's quite a young zebra in comparison to the others. It's smaller, much younger, so I'd imagine that this is the zebra that is potentially maybe lost her calf. It's because it's her that calls every single time. And then the stallion responds every now and then. When she calls, then the stallion starts to call. And you'll hear the stallion is a slightly louder, deeper call than what the female is. And that's just because of his a little bit larger size. He's going to be producing a much more sort of bass voice, much like us as humans. When males tend to be a little bit bigger, they produce a slightly deeper voice than what the females do. And then you can see that's the stallion right at the back. He's got that much thicker neck. Well, we're going to try and see what we can't find with these guys and decode the mystery of what happened last night. And while we do that, to the calls of the zebra, let's go across to Ellie, who I believe is trying to seek out a sunrise, which seems to be about as hard as trying to find the lions this morning.
We did find the sunshine, this beautiful sun coming all the way up. It is a wonderful morning yet again. I'm sure now that the sun is starting to come out, I'll be so happy. Sunrise and sunsets in Africa are something spectacular, aren't they? Just something so unique and beautiful. And it's almost like the whole world stops while this happens. I love it. And it's quite funny how fast it's been moving. It's been going up all this time that we've been watching it. Just doing everything. And you see, we're just looking at it through all these bushes and everything else around. But I suppose that's what makes it beautiful, that we can see it in between the trees in a proper natural environment. And just imagine that this was perhaps the land, or the way the land looked about, I'm going to say 1,000 years ago. That would be quite amazing, wouldn't it? Maybe even some of these trees have seen the same sunset over and over and over. It's funny, it's got a cloud there in the middle and it almost looks like a belt. Shelley, you're saying happy season change because today is a winter solstice. Yes, indeed. What a better way to celebrate than with this beautiful sun going all the way up. Now, talking about important things that are happening this week, well, this week is Animals Awareness Week, and yesterday we started with wild dogs, but it seems like this morning there were some reports of tracks of wild dogs also going up and down the property. It seems like the last set of tracks go south, but it's a good thing to maybe keep in mind and carry on hoping. I'm hoping that they're gonna, if the wild dogs are around, that they'll come and pay us a visit, because that would be great. And well, I know the guys are busy looking for the lions and they're going up and down and they're checking. So if the lions are here, because it sounds like they haven't crossed out, I'm sure the guys are going to be more than capable of finding them. And then of course today is World Giraffe Day. So many things happening. Very busy day today. So I think I'm going to try and find a giraffe for the day. Hopefully I'll be able to find one, although I think that maybe those zebras have just alarmed everyone all around. So it'll be interesting to see if we do manage to find something. I'm sure we will. We're quite far away from where those lions were, so why not? But let's carry on. Now that the sun is our good companion and is going all the way up. Sorry, Megan, can you just repeat that question from Mel again? Mel, you're saying it's the summer solstice in the US. Yes, well, we are the other way around because we're in the southern hemisphere. So for us, I thought this was going to be a much colder beginning of the winter, but so far it's been quite mild. It hasn't been that bad. But I think maybe we're going to have to wait to July and August because those are really cold months to see how it to see what's happening. Oh, that beautiful sun. I'm so happy when the sun comes up. Everything changes, everything starts moving around. Hello, we've got a Nyala crossing the road in front of us. What? And a youngster too. Where are you guys going? Hello. So we've got a small group of Nyala, just 3 of them that I can see, and it looks to be 2 females and 1 young male. And the one that we're looking at, that's the young male. You see those tiny little horns. They always make me laugh. It's like when boys start getting, you know, their beer, and they're it's like there but not quite there yet. And you see it's starting to change color now, because when they grow up they're going to turn, the top part of their body is completely black. So all those stripes, and they're not going to have that beautiful maroon color. They're just going to turn pretty much black. Hello guys, you're looking very beautiful this morning. All in between the trees, and this is very typical of them. They're not doing this because they're afraid of us, but often they will go into thick vegetation. That's the area where they prefer living, where they feel safe. And you see, because they do that, they've got this massive ears, and we can't really see them right now. And just proves that camouflage that is fantastic. Well, we've got one that's not camouflaging all that well, sitting out in the open, but with their very beautiful fluffy tails and all their beautiful stripes. So you see the ears now, very big ears, and because they tend to live in quite thick vegetation, obviously their eyesight is quite good, and also their sense of smell, but they've got to use those big ears as satellite dishes to capture all the noises around them, just to make sure that they know what's around. Oh, hello beautiful girl. Having good breakfast already. You see all the ears? The tiny little holes. Bobby, you're wondering if the head hurts when the horn starts breaking through. I'm not sure if they start hurting per se, or like I don't think it causes the animal a great amount of pain, but I do know it becomes quite itchy, because when the young boys are beginning to have these little horns come out, you'll see them often scratching their head against the branches of the trees or the bark of the tree or even the ground. Sometimes it's almost like it's almost like a scab that they're trying to break free so that the horns can start coming out. So I don't think it's painful, I just think it's annoying for them. And they have to, and I've seen lots of different species do it. I've seen Nyala do it, I've seen duikers do it. Well, I haven't had any experience with kudu, but I'm probably sure they do it with those massive horns that they get. You're such a pretty girl, all the way in there. Sometimes it amazes me the places where they'll stick their heads. But, well, what can I say? If those are the leaves that you want. I think she's also being quite fuzzy with what she's eating, and I believe that she's eating the leaves of a fallen off false marula, also known as a tree of forgetfulness. So it's kind of tree that animals tend to like. It seems like the leaves are quite yummy. I think that's what she's eating, judging from the dead tree next to her and what she seemed, and she's just aiming for the green leaves. Oh, what was that? Just a bird, hey? Nothing to worry about. Who knows? Maybe the wild ducks will come your way. Alright, we shall carry on looking for anything else down here, hopefully some more wild ducks, but let's go over to James, all the way in the Mara, who's woken up to some elephants.
Eggs are swelling. Ellies.
Hello, everybody, and good morning from the Masai Mara here in Kenya. My name is James Henry, and we have been out since, would you believe it, 3:30 this morning. Yes, that's what I said, 3:30. This morning. But we're awake now because the sun is awake. Senzo is on camera today. There he is. Those are his 3 fingers, one with a really startling nail on it. Anyway, that's the way of things, and this is Senzo's first impression of the great Mara Plains. What do you think, Senzo? I'm really enjoying having Senzo here, of course, because he is a taste of South Africa. He is, of course, a speaker of isiZulu, which is, as we're both discovering, relatively similar to Kiswahili in some ways. Right, let's go back to those elephants. A very large herd of them. They are sitting underneath a number of trees. I will tell you that during the night we saw Topi, we saw zebra, we saw elephant, we saw 1 scrub hare, we saw a number of buffalo, and indeed a small herd of wildebeest. We were looking for lions. We did find one before we saw you. Unfortunately, he disappeared into a bush and went to sleep. And then we also had a very nice black rhino sighting. So we've actually had a pretty good morning so far. Hashtag Safari Live is how you get hold of us, of course. I know you know that, but I'll tell you that it's just as easy for you to ask me questions as it is for you to ask Tristan and Ellie as they explore the woodlands of the Sabi sand in South Africa. Now, those elephants are probably at about 100 meters from us. This is a completely no off-roading zone at the moment. So we'll look at them for a little while, and then I think what we'll do is press on and head towards some of the, well, the more sort of watered, marshy spots on the river. Maybe we'll pick up on a lion or 2, but we're just sort of discovering things at the moment. Many of you, of course, have not seen my hat from yesterday. Thank you very much for those very complimenting me on it. I'm not sure it works myself. The reason I have it is not so much so that I can look like Crocodile Dundee or Indiana Jones. It is because the sun here is of a brightness that is really exceptional. We're very high up, about 1,600 meters. No, not quite. Maybe, I think at this point we're probably about 1,400 meters above sea level now. And we're also on the equator, which makes for a blindingly hot sun. But surprisingly, it doesn't, while the light is white, I mean, I can't even see the sky, it's so white there. The colour remains here rather more than it does in other areas I've been where it gets bright. So I think that's quite interesting. Let's have one last look at the Ellies, and then we're going to press on.
Question. R. Lara Boy, what is Swahili?
Now, R. Laura Moore, you want to know what the Swahili word for elephant is, and I will tell you that it is very similar to the one that it is in Zulu, and in Shangaan it is Ndlovu. It's exactly the same. Now, you may think, gosh, that's impressive, he's learnt that in 2 days. It is, of course, not impressive. I'm staring to the back of the car where Manu is sitting. Manu is helping us out on camera while we're here in Kenya. And he is a Kiswahili speaker, and so he was mouthing the word to me. That's how I knew it. Simba, of course, we know is lion, from the Lion King. And we've just heard that Pembe is the word for black rhino. Righty, we are going to press on from here. Ellie has managed to find herself, well, something possibly covered in a lot of dirt.
Covered in a lot of dirt and maybe hiding behind some bushes. The very mighty African or Cape buffalo is looking at us all the way in the distance. So it was funny because even when we were driving, we nearly missed him. But all of a sudden, thankfully, because everything's so beautiful and yellow, his dark body stood out quite a bit. So we were quite happy to see him. Hello, Buff. I was looking for any of your kind yesterday, but I'm happy to see that you're here. And I think we're in presence of a very old warrior. I mean, look at the shape of his horns. He's very big. Everything's worn down. And are you gracing us with your presence? Wonderful. Hello. Look at that, the way that it look at us. It's typical buffalo just to stop and raise their heads and look in that certain matter. So I think maybe, James, we were both wrong. I think he's not covered in that much of dirt. I think he's also just a bit of an older guy. Look at all of them all around. A lot of holes. It happens often as they start getting older, then they start losing some of their hair. They go into the mud a bit more to protect those bald patches, and just, I mean, now that we can, look at those horns, how worn down they are. Whoop. Look at that. Hello, are you coming? We're pretty much next to Treehouse Dam, so I wonder if maybe he's coming all the way here. There are lions here, Buff. You better be careful. He commands some authority, doesn't he, moving around the way that he is. I think he's just gonna come in front of us. Hello? Are you coming? And these are definitely one of those. Look at him. I'm sure this guy has fought many a lion before in his life. We can now just start seeing all the old scars in his body and just see how old he is. So I'm always hiding. I think I'm always humbled by the presence of these older animals that have managed to survive and endure as much as they have. I think he might be heading into the dam. Are you? Alright, I'm gonna go back so we can go onto the dam wall and hopefully have a look at him from the dam wall, because it seems like maybe he's coming down for a drink. It seems like Tristan might have stolen some of my lucky beans, so let's go over to him and find out what happened last night.
Indeed we have. Look at this. This is so exciting. As you can see, there are some stripes in amongst the lions there. So as we thought, one of the zebras unfortunately met its end. So for those of you that are a little bit squeamish, this is maybe not where you would want to watch, and maybe just close your eyes. But the Nkuhuma Pride managed to kill a zebra, and the Birmingham is here and everybody is feasting. And I think they've killed this zebra probably in the early hours of this morning, because the cubs' tummies are not very big. All the adult females have massive stomachs, but the Birmingham male and the cubs' tummy are not very full at all. Now there is going to be a little bit of interest here, because he who must not be named has come in and may actually chase all of these lions at this stage, so let's hope that that passes quickly. But the cubs are having a full-on feast, and you can see how much of this zebra has been eaten. We know the last time we saw the Nkuhumas that they were thin and they needed a meal, and now look at those stomachs in the background. The females are massive, so they've definitely gotten really good nutrients out of this, and now we know why the zebras were so sort of worried about what was going on and making us a big fuss and calling. This has got to be from that particular herd of zebra, and it just shows you how far they've chased to be able to actually get them. So really quite amazing. So a comment from James R.A. Hendry, all the way from the Masai Mara. That's very impressive that the Nkuhuma Pride made a kill. Well, James Henry, indeed it is very impressive, and I'm certainly very glad that you are back in the Masai Mara. It's good to see your face out that side again, and I hope you are having a wonderful time and that you enjoyed your trip to Italy, because I'm sure James must have loved the culture and the food and everything that goes along with being in Italy. So I'm very glad that James is back though, and I'm sure he's going to have an epic time in the Masai Mara now with Brent and Jamie, and it's pretty much the last of our crew have all arrived there, and so the team up there is now complete, which is fantastic. But this is so cool. I'm so excited, and not because the zebra is dead, but more because the Nkuhuma Pride just needed that meal, and the fact that they're finding food here on Djuma means that hopefully they're going to spend more time in this area. Hopefully we're going to get a sign that they're going to hang around, start hunting. And I can see Amber Eyes in the back there. You see she's here, So if she is the mother, then she's just gotten really good nutrients. You can see her eyes very clearly. There we go. That's definitely our girl Amber eyes. Those dark, deep amber colored eyes are very diagnostic. You can't miss her. And so she's had a good meal, which is great. And so far I can only see 3 lionesses. I think there are 4 here, but I can only see the 3. And I saw the female with the blind eye, and she was also here. And then the other 2, I don't know who they are. There's one that's lying off in the distance quite far away, and then there's another one that's just lying off to the right of that bush. There you can see the stomach just protruding out. And so that's what I think we're going to see a lot of over the next little bit, is these guys just digesting. And it's amazing how much meat they can put away. When you look at the size of this particular zebra and you think about how much meat was on there, the fact that that's all that's left over the period of a few hours really is quite something, particularly when you think that the cubs themselves don't have full bellies, and neither does this male. Now the male, I haven't really had a good look, but I think it's Tinyo. I can't see really nicely at this stage. All I've got is his backside facing me, and to be honest, I'm so excited just to be with them that I've forgot to really look and pay attention to who he actually is. So, Michael, you're wondering at what age does the male no longer tolerate the cubs feeding at the carcass right next to him side by side? Well, Michael, I think it's once they get a little bit older and bigger and they start resembling more an adult individual. So once they start looking as though they are big enough to sort of fend for themselves, and that's normally, I would say, about 1.5 to 2 years, he's going to start getting more and more aggressive with these cubs. You can already hear every now and then there's a bit of growling from him as the cubs get a little too close. So he's going to start getting into that situation where he's going to push them away and start sort of moving them off. Once the males, or if there's a males within the pride, those get chased off first, he'll be more tolerant of the females, particularly as they get older. And once they reach 2.5, 3 years, then they definitely not. But that's definitely Tinyo. His lip is caught up on his face, and it's definitely him. So nice to see him here as well, because the other night when we saw him, he also looked like he could do with a meal. So that's really good news, and I wouldn't be surprised by the end of today or tonight that there's more than one Birmingham here, and we end up with a situation where another one is coming. Now you can see there's a little bit of sort of bonding that's going to happen, and this is often what happens after a meal, is bonding does take place. They'll kind of go and groom one another and rest up next to each other, and so it is very, very cool to see. I'm so happy for the pride. This is excellent news, and for us, like I say, at Djuma, it's great news that they're figuring out that there is food here and that they will be able to hunt here. The interesting part, and this is sort of what fascinates me about wildlife, is that we make changes in their environment and yet they're able to utilize it and use it straight away. This road that we're on is a newly built road. It's a road that was only built last week, and I've driven it a few times and said that I'm sure it's going to be a productive one. And the Nkuhuma Pride, I have never seen their tracks coming as far south as this in the last few months. In the last 6 months, they haven't been in this area at all, and all of a sudden this new road has been cut, and they followed this new road through, and it's gone right through a section where we've seen zebra a few times. And so that means that they've worked out that there is food items already in this area, and they didn't just come down the sort of road and then just stumble upon a zebra. They were in and out of this area checking the whole time, and so they're utilizing the change in their environment just like we would. If we saw something new, we've used this road to sort of drive and check, and so have they. And it really is quite interesting how quickly they become accustomed to new areas and how they use open sections to be able to move. It's very, very interesting. The nice thing is that we tracked these guys all the way along, and thankfully we had help from Tax and Aubrey, and they checked the southern and western boundaries, so we knew that those lions had to be somewhere here, and it really made it much easier for us to find them. Now, our lions are enjoying a zebra, and they would love probably to hunt what James has got all the way in the Masai Mara, but I don't think they would even know what it is.
Topi! Everybody a Topi. I'm most pleased to be seeing the Topi at this stage of the morning, mostly because it is doing a very clever thing, and what it's doing, of course, is standing upon a termite mound in order to give advantage to look this way towards us and away in front of us where, well, perhaps there's some lions lurking around the place. In fact, it now seems to be sniffing at the possibility of termites for breakfast, which is of course unusual, and as little as I do know about Topi, I do know, of course, that they are not, in fact, termite eaters by default. In fact, they are, well, grazers and ruminants. Now the Topi has got an itchy chin. Now, if we pan slowly to the left, I will show you just quickly, way in the distance, it's got nothing to do with wildlife, but it does have to do with one of the things that makes the Mara so very exciting to many people. Under that tree, the big tree, no, stop, back, right a little. Yes, those 3 trees, if you, oh, sorry, I'm completely wrong, Senzo, you were absolutely right. There you are, yep, bang in there. Straight there. Zoom. And a little bit right. You can see a little bit of white. No, to the right. You can see a little bit of white there underneath a tree. That is a group of guests there. You can see them wandering around. You may say to yourself, good heavens, there seem to be people wandering around willy-nilly in the Masai Mara. How are they doing that? Well, they're not, in fact. They were landed there by a balloon that took off at, well, what time did it take off? Must have taken off probably at about 6:10 or so. And, well, we're going to be doing some views from the balloon fairly soon. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. Hopefully I'll be able to do it. I'll certainly be able to narrate it to you as we do it. I'm not sure when we're going to do it first, but we'll keep you posted on that. Now, James, you want to know if there's anything that I've not seen here that I would like to see here. Sorry, I'm just a bit distracted because the Topi are now running at high speed. They don't appear to be being chased, and the Sabi, of course, which is what a Topi is, are apparently the fastest antelope that there are. This one is doing a very gentle jog at the moment. James, well, I saw one of the things that I was hoping to see early this morning. We saw a hartebeest, which I had not seen last time I was here. James, I would like to see a cheetah here. I know it's a little bit banal, given that, cheetah are common in this area, apparently. But I didn't see a cheetah last time we were here, and it's interesting. We don't really know why that was, but perhaps to say that it could be because the herds were here, and therefore the lions were, well, perhaps in greater profusion. There were certainly some nomadic lions that follow the herds in, but I think there was a lot more lion activity when I was last here. And Brent's already had 2, one successful, one unsuccessful cheetah kill. And I think he's actually seen a few more that haven't been on camera. And so I'm hoping to spend a bit of time with some cheetah around here over the next little while. Good. Well, that's it for this particular Topi sighting. I think we'll move on and see what else we can see down the way. Most impressed with the Nkuhumas for their efforts today, killing a zebra. The zebras, of course, of the greater Kruger National Park are very unimpressed with the efforts of the Nkuhumas. No, Carol, you're absolutely correct. You say the termite mounds here don't look quite as high as the ones in South Africa. They aren't. I'm not entirely sure if it's the same species of termite. I think it is. The large fungus-growing termite, I think, is the only termite that builds mounds of this style. But the soil is very different, Carol, and I think that's probably why the mounds look so very different. It really is rather magnificent driving through these plains of red oat grass, or Themida triandra, which I've pointed out to you many times on the bush walks. And I've said to you that this is what draws all of those wildebeest up here when the rains do come. Well, they have come. And what's interesting to me, though, is that this grass has already gone to seed. Sorry, Kirsten, I've missed you. Try that again. Oh, there we go. Fuzzman Sparkles, we have a question coming from you that sounded to me as follows. Word you can cheek, Mansaba Nata. I'm not sure what that means, so I'm going to ask for it again while we look at what I think is a rufous-naped lark. Oh, when can we start to expect to see night drives from the Mara? That is not a rufous-naped lark. It looks like a cisticola of some description, possibly a rattling one. Fuzzman Sparkles, I'm not sure yet. We are still trying various things out at the moment, figuring a few things here and there. But certainly we will keep you posted, and there will be night drives, and we have all of the equipment required to do it. It's just a question of getting that equipment onto the vehicles and then making that equipment talk to you. Righty, we're going to carry on from here. Ellie is, well, they're actually on fire, the Tristan and Ellie couple. We've had lions, we've had buffalo, and now you're going to have elephant.
A very beautiful setting, that's what we found. So we've got a very big old elephant bull, and he's been stretching his trunk all the way up to get some of the marula branches, which he managed to do, and he's busy enjoying. He is absolutely loving it. Oh, this is a very old bull. Look how sunken the sides of the forehead are, his temples. That's normally a good indication of an older individual. And I think this might be the same one we saw drinking yesterday morning all the way at the dam. Hello, old boy. I was very excited. Hello, boy, having a beautiful, good breakfast, I gather. Look at that. Isn't that also like pure power? And I love looking at very old bull elephants when they're like this. I think they command some respect. Don't you guys think so? And you can tell he's not upset with us or anything. The flapping of the ears. It's actually a warmish morning today. So I think maybe he's been exercising a bit, trying to stretch all the way up. We're gonna wait for him and see if perhaps he stretches up one more time. But while we do that, let's go to Tristan, who's moving along with the lions.
Well, it's been such an incredible experience. The male just stood up and dragged the carcass, and he dragged the carcass and the cubs with him in an incredible display of strength. And I don't think he's going to be finished. There's also was a huge fight between Tinyo and one of the cubs. He wanted to drag the carcass. The cub didn't want to let go, and there was swatting and carrying on, and it was all quite sort of ferocious. And I don't think we've seen the end of this situation. But the nice thing is that we can see that all 6 cubs are here. So there's 3 in the front and then 3 at the back. And you can see the 4th one just coming forward, and look at how that one cub is watching Tinyo. He was the one that got a little bit of a smack from Tinyo, and so now it's just playing sort of possum and pretending like it's not going to do anything, but it's sneaking forward to try get to that nice thick leg meat that is still on the carcass itself. So very clever little lion. But I think there's going to be a few explosive moments with this carcass because it's starting to get less and less now. So, Ellie, you want to know where's the tiny little baby lion cub? Look at these cubs creeping in. You see them? They're so cheeky. They sit on the edge and they pretend like they don't want to feed. But look, it's on its basically crawling towards the carcass. And then it knows, okay, I can't get too close to where Dad is because otherwise he's going to shout at me. So it just crawls closely. Now, Ellie, sorry, I got a bit distracted because that was quite cute. But the little cub, it doesn't feed on meat yet. It's still too young to eat meat. And so it's drinking milk. And therefore, it stays in a den. It's not going to join the pride to hunt or anything like that. It's going to stay in a den and try and stay safe there. And what will happen is the mother will have maybe been here already, fed, and now goes back to that cub and goes and transfers the nutrients from the carcass via its milk into the cub itself. And so she'll go suckle the cub, and only after about 3 months will that cub then start being led to the pride, where it will start to be introduced to meat. And even then, for the first sort of month or 2, that cub will be taken to and from carcasses. It won't actually travel with the pride itself. Once they reach about 5-6 months, that's when they're then moving with the pride and with the mother, and we'll see them at the carcass more and more often. So at this stage, it's just that it's too small and it doesn't feed off meat yet. It can't process the meat, and so it needs to spend time in a den away where it's nice and safe. So, James, you're wondering if these cubs are being well behaved because Tinyo is present. Well, well behaved is a bit of a sort of questionable, summary, because just now they were being naughty. They were all crowding behind Tinyo and around him, and then he got upset and he sorted them all out, and now they sort of, like naughty children who have been shouted at, have now gone to the one side of the carcass, as you can see there, and are feeding and keeping their heads down and showing quite submissive behavior, because Tinyo had to just quickly crack the whip and say, right, enough of this nonsense. And so that's why they're being well behaved now, is because they've just been disciplined. But they also know that they won't feed on his side of the carcass because he's going to get far too aggressive with them. So they've worked out that if they're on one side and he can be on the other side, then everything is fine. But as soon as they try and cross over that boundary onto his side, he gets upset, and then we'll find a situation where he'll try and chase them away. But you can see they've absolutely stripped this carcass. You would think a zebra would last a long period of time, but as you can see there, that zebra is completely gone. And this is not a small zebra. I mean, I thought it might be a baby zebra that was lost, but this is a fairly large zebra. I would say it's a sub-adult, if not an adult itself. And you can see there is very little left there. So, Larimore, you were wondering whether this was an adult or not, and like I say, I think it's a sub-adult. It's not a fully grown big individual, but it's definitely a sub-adult, and I think maybe that's why that other female was calling, is that it's her offspring, but from quite a while ago, and that's why we're finding that she's so panicked about where sort of this zebra is and what's happened to it. But if we look at the cubs, they're busy feeding on the right side of there, and you can actually see there is a yellow fat content there, so that is deep yellow in color. Now, very few animals have that deep rich yellow fat. That fat is highly nutritious. In fact, it's one of the most nutritious parts of any animal that we have out here, and that's why zebra are one of those species that lions would love to eat, because that fat content is so full of nutrients. And this is going to be a really good meal for this pride. They are going to be in a lot better shape after this, as you can see by that little cub that's got a big fat belly that is full of blood that's just rolled into. There we go, you see them fighting? So as this meat gets less, we're going to see more and more of that. Right, well, we're going to carry on enjoying our Nkuhuma Pride. Ellie apparently is playing hide and seek with a rather large animal.
I don't know if you guys can see it already, but we are playing hide and seek indeed. He crossed the road and he was very big and majestic, and now he's just busy hiding in between the bushes. So it's a bit of a tricky spot to try and see him. I think he's just busy enjoying a different kind of plants. So we're sticking around here, hoping that he's gonna carry on moving into an area where it is a bit more open. He was moving in that particular direction, but it is amazing. I mean, you would think that something, as we hear so much about coloration and the spots and the stripes and the pattern, how something so big and gray becomes so hard to see. And if it weren't for that trunk breaking everything, I think we wouldn't have been able to see him at all. Look at those tusks on the trunk. I think this Ellie loves eating the branches of the top, because he was definitely doing that with the marula, and he's doing it with this ones over here. Could be because the leaves up at the top are maybe a bit more tasty. Maybe that's why he's enjoying breaking everything up from the top. And I am trying, we thought about trying to move somewhere else and see if we can get a better view, but everywhere we've tried, it seems like it's going to be a bit of a tough one. So we're going to sit it out and see if perhaps he graces with one last look. I can't believe he's not there. Just see a leg and a tusk every now and again moving. Hello, boy. Very happy. Look at that tusk. John, you're wondering how high elephants can reach. Well, it depends on the elephant and how old they are. If sometimes you'll see that they'll go into their back legs and stretch all the way up. This one tried doing it, but I don't think he's quite got it figured out how to just stand on his back legs. But I think he reached maybe an extra 2-3 meters, just because of that trunk that's very long. And in some areas, like in Zimbabwe, for example, Ellies are very well known for going on their back legs and stretching all the way up. Hello! What's happening with them, Dutch? Do you guys have them this side? Yeah.
I don't know where, but by Zebra and
Okay.
there's the other tent
Okay. Alright. Cool. I'll look for them. I heard the impala going crazy just now. Okay. Alright. Cool. Thanks. Enjoy. Alright. Sorry guys. I just wanted to find out what's happening with the wild ducks. And I think we're going to carry on looking for them. But in the meantime, let's go to James, who wants to celebrate World Giraffe Day. And of course, he's looking for another very tall creature.
Hello everybody, here we are with a number of Giraffe cameloleopardalis tippleskirchi, the Maasai giraffe. Aren't they lovely? Especially in this landscape. Now, just in case you're wondering, while you watch these great beasts wandering gently across the plains, we are an hour ahead of South Africa, which means that it is now, I don't know, it must be, 8 o'clock in the morning here? 8:30 in the morning here. And 7:30 there in South Africa. And so that's, we're a little bit further east than South Africa, or quite a lot further east, which is probably why it looks a lot brighter here than it does over there. It's not that the morning is necessarily that much brighter, you see. Now, the reason I'm not saying very much is that, of course, it's checking the tippleskirchis in my book. Now, Shelley, of course, you have well succeeded where I have failed in many respects. You've said that, yay, World Giraffe Day. It is indeed World Giraffe Day. That is absolutely correct. And therefore we should pay tribute to what I think is probably one of Africa's most iconic creatures. And certainly it used to astound me when, I've told you the story a few times, but people used to come out and get on the back of the Land Rover, and I'd say, well, what would you like to see? Well, strictly speaking, I would sit down at tea with them and introduce myself, and then say, after having cut them a delightful piece of orange cake and poured them their coffee just the way they liked it, and then you say, well, what would you like to see? And they say, we're here to see the Big Five, because that's what some relatively imbecilic agent has told them that they have to see, when the Big Five, of course, excludes this completely astounding animal. And so I used to say to them, don't you want to see giraffe? And they'd stare at me as though I'd stepped from the proverbial Swiss cheese, and so, of course we want to see giraffe. And then you would have to explain that they are not part of the Big Five, which of course makes the Big Five that much more inane. Now, I think this giraffe has got amorous intentions. Yes, indeed he does. He's exhibiting the phlegm grimace. He has been sniffing the urine of the cow in front of him, and he is now perking up substantially. Now, we have watched the deeply, deeply slow and what only looks like profoundly painful process of the southern giraffe trying to mate in the Sabi sand. As far as I'm aware, we have yet to see a tippleskirchi engage in the same activity of making more tippleskirchis, and perhaps this is to be a first. They both seem to be staring rather gormlessly towards us. Of course, there could be a pride of lions just behind us, but there isn't. And Barbara, you say you love giraffe. Well, Barbara, I love giraffe too. I think they're fantastic things, and I think we're very lucky to be looking at them. especially this version of them. Now, they are not that much or that obviously different from the southern giraffe. Their patterning is slightly less regular. Each patch is slightly less regular than the patches on the southern giraffe. And it's only when you see the reticulated giraffe a little further north in Kenya, that you notice a really big difference. But to all intents and purposes, they are the same animal. They are different subspecies, but that doesn't mean that they're genetically very dissimilar at all. And interestingly, they're browsing on very low-hanging shrubs, the identification of which, I'm afraid at this stage, escapes me. Hello, Cheyenne. You're just 6 years old, and you've obviously got very good eyes. You say, why do they have those bumps on their heads? Well, I think you're talking about their horns, or what we might call their ossicones. Or if you watch Byron this afternoon, he might refer to them as the ossicles, which of course is incorrect, and I like to tease Byron about that. But the ossicones are those bumps or horns that you can see on the top of the head there, and for the males, they're used for fighting. They're used to bash each other, and they bash each other because they fight over the ladies, over the females. But that's why we think they have those horns. Now, what's slightly strange about that, Cheyenne and everyone else, is that, of course, in most of the animals where male and female have horns, they are used as defense against predators. And in those species where only the males have horns, well, often they're largely used for just fighting each other during the bretting or mating seasons. Now, in giraffe, of course, the males do not use their horns to defend themselves against predators at all, because they are much too tall to be effective against something like a lion. They kick quite viciously against lions. And so why the females should have horns, well, I think that's another matter entirely. I don't really know why. In fact, I've never given it a moment's thought until right now. I shall have to give it more thought and hope that you will all do the same for me. Victor, you're wondering about alarm calls and whether or not giraffe have them. They do, actually. They're a little bit more difficult to define than many of the alarm calls you'd hear from something like, say, a kudu or a Nyala or a Waterbuck or I'm trying to think of a species here, reedbuck, which whistles, actually, in alarm. But they can make a snort. I've heard them snort. I've also heard them make a loud groaning noise in alarm, so they will do both. But also, of course, we know that they communicate infrasonically, and it's quite possible that they do that when they're alarmed as well, not just when they are having a chat, a good old chin wag about the balloons that have just flown over their heads, and whether or not the pilot nearly clipped them on the top of their ossicones as he flew by. Now, Tristan Dix, photographer extraordinaire, tracker extraordinaire, is currently looking at the Ninkapumas in the early morning South African light, so let us go back there and join him.
Well, James Henry, that's a lot of compliments in one sentence there, but thank you very much for that. That's very kind of you. And like I say, it's been quite quiet without James. Luckily, Byron's come in, and it's always funny when the two of them are together because we see quite a bit of entertainment when they are together in camp. Lots of sort of baiting one another and giving each other trouble. So it is quite quiet without James, and I'm sure Byron is missing James quite a bit. I'm sure there's been a few Skype phone calls here and there to keep Byron happy. But as you can see, the status quo of things has changed slightly. Tinyo has now gone to the other side of the carcass, and all the cubs were pushed off. They had to move. The interesting thing is a fifth lioness appeared out of nowhere behind us. I don't know where she came from, if she was here originally and we just drove past her to start, but she is here. So all 5 lionesses. We've got one on the far left who's just hidden in the grass. She's over there. So that's the one that just arrived out of nowhere. We don't know where she was, but she must have been lying in the grass. Then we've got 2 together over here. Then there's a 4th one on the right of those 2 lying next to one another, and then right at the back is the 5th lioness in the corner. Now, I don't think anyone's actually checked that 5th lioness right at the back there, but potentially, maybe the little cub is somewhere at the back there. Who knows? We might just have a little look there just now and just check in that grass and see if maybe there is some sort of sign of the little cub, but I haven't seen any tracks for it. And when we were tracking this pride, it was just the females and the cubs that were walking along, and the male joined, I think, only much later, because I found his tracks on top of all of the females' tracks coming this way. So I don't think the little cub is here, but I wonder, the female that we just noticed behind us, she definitely doesn't have any suckle marks. I don't think it's her. I think she was just resting somewhere where we couldn't see her, and she's just popped out. And since, other than her, I've been trying to check all females for suckle marks. I've only seen the one with the sort of blind eye, and she doesn't have. Then I've seen the mother, one of the mothers of these cubs, which has got 2 good eyes but honey colored. She doesn't have. I haven't seen amber eyes or the young female yet, so it's one of those 2 that must have the cubs, as we surmise, but at this stage I don't know which one. It's difficult to see. Like I say, they're lying in ways that is quite hard, and it's also, the grass is very long, and over the course of today, as they flatten the grass, so we should be able to then work out who exactly is the mother of the cubs. And particularly if we come this afternoon and one of them is missing, then we're going to know for sure. So Donald, you're wondering if the lions are going to lick this carcass completely clean, or if they're going to leave bits for others to scavenge. Now, if you have a look at that male lion, and if we turn the ambience right up and I keep quiet, you might be able to hear how rough his tongue is, and he's busy grooming every little bit that he can off of that carcass. Can you hear that? You hear how rough that is? It's almost like sandpaper. So what he's going to do is they're going to lick as much as they can off. Ultimately, though, lions aren't as patient as some other animals, and as it gets a little bit hotter, so this lion is going to start getting a little bit kind of bored of this whole situation, and they're going to leave the ribs with little bits of meat on it, but they'll eat most of the legs, the neck, all of that, and then there'll be a few sort of internal organs that are left. I can see looks like the spleen lying off to the right of the male's tail there. You can just see it lying in the grass. So things like that, the vultures and hyenas will come and pick up later. And if we came to this carcass in, I would say, about 48 hours time, there probably will be so little left of it. In fact, we would just find a rib cage that would be picked absolutely clean, because the one animal out here that can clean bones like no other is a hooded vulture, and they will be here by the end of today. I can tell you now, as soon as this cloud cover breaks, which it's starting to do, so the vultures are going to get up and they're going to start using the thermals to fly, and once they spot this, they're going to all come and land in this area, and then we'll have a situation where the hooded vultures get in and they'll be able to actually clean up what's going on. But look at this cub. This cub is about as deep into the carcass as it possibly can be. Look, you can't go any further in, and Tinyo's going to get cross with you now. I think it's lucky that the rib cage is protecting it at this stage. But that's quite interesting. It looks like, I know this is quite gross, it's sat back down now, but it looked like that little cub had a tapeworm hanging out of its backside, or is it just bits of the carcass? No, it was just a bit of the carcass. It almost looked like a tapeworm. Oh no, it's blood that's hanging down from its inside, so you can see there it's a bit of grass that has blood all over it. But for a second it looked like a tapeworm that was hanging down. You sometimes do get that situation, and because they've been sitting in blood and all kinds of other things, so the grass has taken on that color, and then the grass is just sticking to them as the blood is drying while they're feeding. So I thought maybe, I have seen it before in lions with tapeworms, and Nyala Pride males at one stage, 2 of them walked around with tapeworms hanging out, or some sort of parasitic worm hanging out of their rear end. And so it does happen. I mean, you can imagine these guys eat rotting meat, and there's all kinds of things that they must pick up from it. Barefoot Spectral Owl, I like your Twitter handle, and you want to know how long a carcass would last for these guys in terms of it be viable to eat before it becomes so sort of off that they leave it alone. Well, lions, I hate to tell you, are pretty manky creatures. They'll eat carcasses that are very rotten. In fact, I've seen lions feeding off a giraffe carcass that was so rotten the meat was green and bubbling in places, and so really not very pleasant at all. And so they will definitely eat for as long as there is meat on this carcass. You can see in this particular case they've eaten so much that by this afternoon, which they'll still be here this afternoon, they will have cleaned up everything, and there'll be really so little left that it's not viable for them to even stay here. But theoretically, normally with lions, and when we saw that drought period where food was easy to catch, the lions were actually leaving a carcass every day. They would basically eat while it was still fresh and the blood was still flowing, but after that they would leave it and leave half buffalo all over the place. So at the end of the day, it depends on availability of food as well as the size of the carcass. I've also seen lions stay on a buffalo carcass for 4 days, so it just depends on the individuals themselves. But most of the time they eat, the rate at which they eat means that they get everything before it actually goes off too quickly. Look at him cleaning the ribs now. Isn't that cool? Yes, we're talking about you. So, John, you're wondering what organs they don't eat. Well, generally, it depends on the size of the carcass. Something like an impala, they'll pretty much eat every little bit of it, just because there's so little amount of nutrients for a pride of this size. This zebra has filled everybody up with really good meat and good nutrients, and so they can afford to leave things like the spleen and the gallbladder and those kind of things. But they will most definitely, the first thing that would have been eaten out of this would have been the heart, the kidneys, the liver. Those are all packed full of nutrients, and they're full of vitamins and minerals that they don't get just from pieces of meat. And so you'll find that those were eaten first, and then the rest of the meat was eaten, and then they'll start going into the stomach linings and the intestines and those kind of things. But often you'll find spleens, gallbladders, those sort of organs just left on the side, like that one that we saw just now. And I mean, I'm not 100% sure it is the spleen, but it's something of that description. It could even be a bit of the stomach that is there that's been emptied out. Now, we're going to, like I say, keep going with these guys, see how much of this they can actually put away in the morning, because it seems like they're just never ending, and this carcass is getting less and less and less. And while we do that, let's go all the way across to Mr. Henry, the expert, the English teacher, the man of the moment, with his waterbuck in the Masai Mara.
And I've just asked Senzo, who's never seen a Defasa waterbuck, what differentiated it from the one at home. And I'm pleased to say I tricked him completely, and he did not realize it was because it does not have the ring around the buttocks. Other than that, it is nigh identical to the ones we get back home. Of course, I'm eventually going to have to stop saying that, or stop comparing the animals, because, well, it'll probably get a little bit boring. They're also darker, of course. I really quite like them. And it's in fact the same species, it's just a different subspecies from the ones we get at home. And the oxpeckers, those are red-billed, are they? I think that's red-billed. Yes, red-billed. Now, Ash, as you say that this is a majestic waterbuck, I have to agree. I think he's posing, rather. He's got a very thick neck, and I wonder if he hasn't just come out of a bit of a rut or the mating season, perhaps. I mean, they would have in South Africa some time back, but I don't know about here. I don't know how seasonal they are as breeders out here. Magnificent. Right, we haven't got very far since I last saw you, so we're probably going to keep driving. And yeah, I think you're right, Siberia Zuma. You say you think the waterbuck here have a slightly darker nose ridge. Yeah, I think I would agree with you. Alrighty. I do apologize. It would seem that there seems to be some audio dropping or audio difficulties. I'm sorry about that. We will attempt to, of course, fix the problem. Alrighty, let's press on from the Defasser Waterbuck. We've also seen an exactly probably what happened to my last pair of sunglasses. Alright, we're going to continue. I'll just quickly show you where we're heading. If you look way in the distance there, you can see a ridge of trees over the top. That's the one, the far one there. That's the sort of going to be the terminal point of our drive, and then we're going to turn around from there and come back again. Alright, while we do that, Tristine still with the Nkuhumas and their zebra breakfast.
Indeed we are, but things just erupted into aggression. Tinyo lost his rag completely and chased a whole bunch of females around and pinned one of them down and was going crazy for a second, and now he's gone back and lay down. You can actually see he's still irritated by, watch his tail. His tail's moving quite a bit and he's not very impressed at all, and I don't know what triggered it. They were all lying down and there was cubs were feeding and the lionesses were all fast asleep, and he just decided to take his aggression out on one of the lionesses and not on the cubs, and everybody scattered all over the place. And you can see those are the eyes of a rather upset male. What's wrong, boy? Are you full now and that's why you're grumpy? I don't think his time in terms of being awake is much longer now, and he's going to fall asleep fairly shortly. So, Tammy, you're wondering when the lions will have to eat again. Well, Tammy, it's a sort of dependent thing. It's almost like how long is a piece of string. Lions, in terms of when they will have to eat again, they'll have to eat probably in about, I would say, if they really became desperate, would be over a week, close to 2 weeks, until they would be absolutely famished and would need to feed again. In terms of when would they potentially hunt again, well, if a buffalo walked past here right now, you might find that they would hunt it and try and kill it. So they're such opportunistic animals that any time there's a potential food item that comes past, they'll often then try and take advantage of that. Particularly large items like buffalo, because buffalo is so scarce around here at the moment, they would then use that as a way of trying to kind of get food. But theoretically, and the kind of rough average is every sort of 3 to 4 days is what we see lions feeding at, and that's generally just factoring in their sort of hunting capability and their success rates, as well as the fact that they then start to get quite hungry and become far more active in their hunting after 2-3 days. You must remember that if it goes to a period of close to 2 weeks, they are going to have lost huge amounts of condition, and they're going to be in a situation where they're not going to be very, very healthy animals, and hunting is going to get harder and harder. The longer they go without food, the harder it becomes for these guys to actually feed themselves, and so that's why they try and hunt as quick as possible when they start to get thin. And so this is the reason why I was so excited that the Nkuhuma Pride has had such a good feed, because they were starting to look quite famished, the cubs were looking quite thin, and this meal is really going to just sort of help them get back to their normal selves, which is big, thick, powerful animals that they are. But it seems like all is calming down now. Cubs are starting to feed, and Tinyo is now at least closing his eyes. It looks like he's going to have a little nap as well, so I think we'll all be okay. It was just a minor hiccup, and this is what does happen, is just the male does assert his dominance sometimes over the females. You'll find he'll kind of come in and just try and make sure that everybody knows that he is the boss of what's going on here. But interesting that he left the cubs alone. I'm pretty sure it was one of the cubs that irritated him, but So, Robert, you saying did the cubs help with the kill, or was it just the big male? Well, Robert, the big male, I think, had nothing to do with this. I think he only arrived after the fact. He was probably here when he heard them feeding, not actually present when it was killed. I think he only arrived much later. If you look at the size of the bellies of the females in relation to the male, their bellies are massive. I think they had a good feed before he found them. I think he only found them subsequently to them killing it. The cubs themselves, whether they helped in the hunt, doubt it. Things like a zebra are fast, they're very quick. These cubs are still too young, too small to be able to be participating in a hunt like that. Last year we know that the females did show these cubs how to kill a buffalo, and they had them on a buffalo and tried to kind of move around and use, and then the buffalo was still alive and the cubs were learning how to grab it. But in a situation like this, particularly if the pride is hungry and they haven't fed very well, then you'll find that they don't really allow the cubs to do too much because they don't want to risk losing that animal. They need to be able to kill it and feed as much as possible. Last year, the reason why they were able to do that with the buffalo is that there was just an absolute sort of feast when it came to buffalo, and so all of them were able to feed, and they could take their time and they could use it, and the buffalo was so weak that they weren't going anywhere once they were down on the ground, and that's why it was a good opportunity to teach them. These cubs are still too young now for hunting, and I would reckon they'll only really be participating in the hunts in probably another year's time. They're learning all the time, and they're following the lionesses, and they'll watch, and it was quite interesting when we were following their tracks to the point where we found them, is that you could see the females were cutting on and off the road, and they were going back and forth, and the cubs, it looked like they lay down in one place, and the females then did the hunting, and then the cubs were called and brought back to the kill itself, where they could then start feeding. But very, very cool to see. Now, I believe we've had luck with lions, but Ellie is on the search for one of the most endangered predators, and it was actually a feature of our Animal Rights Awareness Week yesterday, so hopefully she'll have some luck.
Unfortunately, not any luck just yet. I feel like we're almost chasing ghosts. It's been a bit of a mystery trying to find these wild dogs, and while we've been looking for them, apparently also shadow crossed into Djuma, but not too sure where, because there were too many guides following her through the bushes, and nobody's quite sure if she actually did cross or if she just avoided them all. So it's almost like we're chasing ghosts this morning, really. I feel like the Ghostbusters. Hopefully we'll find one of them. Just checking the main road again just to see if there are any tracks, because the last update for the wild dogs, they were roughly heading this way, so we'll see. Hopefully they'll stop running at some point and we'll be able to find them again. Also just want to double check the road again for any leopard, but I think it's becoming a bit of a tricky day. Because the weather is the way it is, I think a lot of creatures are taking advantage of it and just moving around, just exactly like the lions were last night. The leopards will be moving around, and then of course the wild dogs are moving around. So I'm really hoping that we'll be able to see them, and we shall carry on trying. I just want to check this track. So we have been pretty much doing the same two roads up and down, patrolling this area. We shall see what's going on, but let's not lose hope. I'm sure just keep an eye out on the dam camp, because I know those wild dogs like coming and having a drink there, so perhaps they'll grace us with their presence a bit later on. And if you do see anything, use the hashtag Safari Live and let us know that they're there so we can come and have a look. Seems like they were slowly heading east, which I hope they are not going to carry on doing for too long, because then that means they'll end up in Torchwood, which we don't really want, because then we won't be able to see them. But who knows, now that they're around, perhaps there is a possibility of them being somewhere. Hello again, people. Come on, little creatures. Let's see. Yep. No tracks here. I wonder. Emily, you're wondering what my favorite animal to watch is. Well, I would say wild dogs are high up in my species of animals that I like watching. And the reason for it is because they're so active. They're always like running around and moving and doing something, or they start playing and chasing each other. So they're quite entertaining to see. I just really love watching animals when they're doing something. But not too sure. Yeah, so to watch. And then also leopards are quite entertaining to watch when they're doing something, or when they're tiny little cubs, the way they go up in the trees and then they come down and then they start playing around, or they play around with their mother's tails. And then of course elephants are also interesting to watch, because always with their trunks and playing around and the dynamics and happen. It's wonderful. Let's go over a very beautiful.
Right, everybody, look at that. A particularly magnificent spot of a cheetah. Looks like a male to me. Not entirely sure. My very first Mara cheetah. And spotted by, a chap from Chitwa, which is a camp just north of where we operate, Angama Mara. And then I could spot it, Sensor, all the way from South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal. He managed to spot the cheetah lying underneath that bush. It's a fantastic, fantastic sighting. Yes, I know it's not chasing a Thompson's gazelle right now, but maybe it'll get up and do that shortly. Isn't that good? It was quite far away from us, about 100 meters or so. And I mean, how you would see that with the naked eye, just don't know. I mean, that really is impressive. And now apparently this is not a male, apparently it's a female. And you can see there, now look at the look at the picture that Senzo was produced for you there. He's showing you how difficult, of course, it is to be spotting this creature. And now he'll zoom in to where it is. And I'm being told there's a vulture in the tree. Of course, there isn't a vulture in the tree, it's a heron. But Kirsten will go through the bird list when I get back. Cheetah is up. Oh, this is wonderful. Now, I'm sure Brent has mentioned this, but there is no kind of vehicle limit on the main roads in this area. So, I mean, we can follow her, but if she does start to move, it is quite possible that our view will be cut off by other vehicles. So just be aware, it is slightly different, of course, from the exclusivity that is afforded us in a place like Djuma. The trade-off, of course, is space. What a magnificent creature you are, my dear. Now, we've yet to, of course, identify our cheetah characters out here, or not all of them, certainly. And I don't know if this is a similar one or the same one that Brent saw hunting. Oh, this is just spectacular. Look at this. Oh, wow. Rebecca, you say it's got such long, skinny legs. Indeed, she does. And those long, skinny legs, quite unlike a human being that is very fast, allow her to move at an astonishing pace. This is just spectacular. Very similarly built, of course, to something like a greyhound. And her speed not only comes from her very long legs, but also from an extremely flexible spine. There's a bird I can't identify. Alarm calling at her. Sounds like a frog. Quack, quack. I think we stay right here. There we go. I don't think we'll get a better view, I'm afraid. We can't go off-road in this area. But she's totally confiding. Alright, while we wait and see what she does, I believe that one of the Birmingham boys is going to try and put his breakfast under a bush.
Well, absolute chaos erupted in the last 5 minutes. We've had fighting, we've had the Birmingham boy dragging his carcass off. You can see he's taking it deep into the thicket. He's not having any of it. He lost his temper completely and chased everybody around, picked up the carcass and is now dragging it deep into the thickets to try and hide it away. So he's basically said, enough of all of you, I'm done, I'm taking my carcass into the bush and I'm leaving you all behind. And there was a big fight between him and one of the cubs, and he gave the cub serious hiding. And now you can see all the lionesses stood up, and they've now come back to where this carcass is to try and see if there isn't any scraps that they can potentially feed it. So now that he's taken the carcass away, the rest of them can then try and see if there's something that they can eat. He doesn't let any of these lionesses anywhere near the carcass at this point. Now, Ferg, this lioness standing up here, if you can just zoom in on her teats for me, please. Is she the one who's got milk? No suckle marks there. I thought for a second, just the way she was standing, that it could have been her that's got the cubs, but it's not her. No. Right, so we'll have to just keep watching. In all the chaos, every time he chases them, I forget to look who's got suckle marks and who's the actual sort of lioness is with the cub, but hopefully in time we will. You can see she's got quite a few bite wounds on her leg as well, towards her sort of ankle part of this back.
That's when I zoom in on this little cub sneaking in here.
So this cub that's being very cheeky. Be careful. We're going to have a situation where that bush is just shaking, and hopefully there's not going to be a big male lion coming out of the bush. Now the cubs are cheeky. One by one they're starting to go there, and it seems like Tinyo is on his way back this side. He's just pushed the carcass in there just to cover it up for now. But let's see, because you see this cub? This cub is sort of playing coy. Tinyo is just behind that bush at the moment, and the cub is just there where he is. And just quickly gone past him. Well done. It is so cool to find lions like this. When their lions are on a kill, there's so much activity that goes on, and so much sort of behavior that we don't see often from them. When they're lying down, they generally are quite sort of lazy and don't do too much. But in situations like this, it's just such an interesting study of the dynamics. And that female at the back has got to be one of the most beautiful females. Look at how perfect her condition is. So Davina, you're wondering if the moms will step in to protect the cubs from the males. Well, in this situation, no, because the females have all been given a hiding as well since we've been here. They've all been pinned down and scratched and bitten. You can actually see this female walking away from us. If we look at her tail area, look at how many bite marks she's got there. And there's fresh ones, there's claw marks. So you can see just on the right of her tail, let's go a little bit to the right there, Ferg. There you go. You can see a fresh little nick there. So they've all been hit by this male this morning as well, and so they're probably just as nervous as well. They know that also with that male is that it's just a show of bravado, and with the cub he pinned it down, but he didn't actually do anything to her. He didn't hurt that cub in any way or try and actually bite or claw it. It was just more of a display and a show of exactly how powerful he is and how much dominance he does have. So it wasn't really aimed at trying to kill the cub. It's more just to show them that he is the dominant individual within this grouping.